Listen closely, Chosen One, because what I'm about to reveal will shatter everything you thought you knew about that coordinated attack against you. The betrayal you experienced wasn't random. It was orchestrated with surgical precision by forces that recognized something in you that even you hadn't fully awakened to yet. But here's what will leave you speechless. Their entire conspiracy was actually fulfilling a divine prophecy they never saw coming. 3 wars were raging simultaneously while you thought you were just living your life. The visible battle, a community-wide assault on your reputation and sanity. The hidden conflict, a spiritual reconnaissance mission disguised as friendship and concern. The cosmic drama, a divine orchestration so elaborate that your enemies became unwitting architects of your elevation. What you're about to discover will explain why their failure wasn't just inevitable, it was predetermined before they even knew your name. They needed an army because they could sense the magnitude of what they were truly facing. This wasn't about taking down another person. This was about stopping a force of nature, silencing a voice that threatened to expose every lie they'd built their lives upon, neutralizing someone whose very existence made their mediocrity unbearable. But armies can be defeated. Divine assignments are eternal. Imagine the supernatural coordination unfolding like a dark symphony, former enemies suddenly discovering they had one thing in common, you. People who hadn't spoken in years mysteriously reconnecting with one shared mission. Individuals who couldn't agree on basic principles suddenly finding perfect unity around one objective, your downfall. The precision looked choreographed, as if darkness itself had called an emergency summit and your name was the only agenda item. But while this surface conspiracy was playing out, something far more significant was happening in dimensions they couldn't perceive. Every person who turned against you was being sorted. Every betrayer was being catalogued. Every fake friend was being exposed for a purpose that won't become clear until the final moments of this divine drama. The psychological warfare they launched was unlike anything documented in human behavior studies. They didn't just spread random gossip, they constructed alternate realities, complete mythologies where you became the villain in stories that bore no resemblance to actual events. Your kindness was reframed as manipulation, your boundaries were recast as arrogance, your authentic confidence was painted as narcissistic delusion. What they didn't realize was that each lie they told was actually a prophecy of your coming transformation. While they were busy attacking shadows, you were being forged into something unbreakable. Every weakness they tried to expose was being converted into unshakable strength. The version of you they were trying to destroy never existed, but the version you were becoming would be indestructible. The conspiracy deepened beyond surface attacks. They weaponized familiarity with calculated cruelty. These weren't strangers taking random shots. These were people who had studied you, mapped your emotional landscape, catalogued your responses, like scientists building a weapon specifically calibrated to your spiritual DNA. They took your past struggles and reframed them as character evidence. They took moments of trust and transformed them into weapons of mass destruction. Every conversation you'd had with them was being reanalyzed for ammunition. Every vulnerability you'd shared was being weaponized for future deployment. Every secret you'd confided was being prepared as evidence in a trial you didn't even know was happening. The level of premeditation was staggering. They had turned friendship into espionage. But here's what makes their strategy so insidious. They didn't just use your present against you, they excavated your past like archaeologists of destruction. Your childhood struggles became evidence of instability. Your family dynamics were twisted into proof of dysfunction. Your romantic history was rewritten as a pattern of manipulation. They took every moment where you had been human, vulnerable, imperfect, and transformed it into ammunition for character assassination. The precision was surgical. They knew exactly which memories would cut deepest, which wounds were still tender, which scars you thought had healed completely. They weaponized your bloodline, turning even your ancestry into evidence against your worth. Some of them smiled in your face while documenting your pain. Others acted concerned while secretly cataloging your breaking points for later exploitation. This wasn't just betrayal, this was spiritual archaeology, digging through the sacred ground of your life story to find artifacts they could corrupt into weapons. They studied your patterns of trust, your reflexes of loyalty, your instinctive responses to conflict. They were building a psychological profile so detailed it would make intelligence agencies envious, yet something extraordinary was occurring simultaneously. While they were collecting intelligence about your weaknesses, you were unconsciously developing immunities to their attacks. While they were studying your patterns, you were evolving beyond their comprehension. While they were preparing their weapons, you were being equipped with divine armor they couldn't penetrate. Here's what changes everything about their coordinated assault. Their unity was built on a foundation so fragile it contained the seeds of its own destruction. Each person brought their own resentment, their own jealousy, their own unhealed wounds to this alliance. Some couldn't stand that you never begged for acceptance. Others were infuriated by your ability to remain calm while they thrived on chaos. A few simply hated that their usual manipulation tactics had no effect on you, but the timing of their internal collapse was divinely orchestrated. Just when their attacks reached peak intensity, just when you felt most isolated and vulnerable, just when it seemed like their coordinated assault might actually succeed, that's precisely when their alliance began imploding from within. The beauty of fake unity is its inevitable self-destruction through contradiction. Stories started changing, details shifted. The script they had rehearsed together began falling apart because lies require constant maintenance, and maintaining consistency across multiple conspirators is ultimately impossible. People started questioning each other's versions of events. Doubt crept into their certainty. Suspicion poisoned their solidarity. Meanwhile, something they never anticipated was unfolding. While their fake community was crumbling, you were being initiated into an authentic spiritual community they couldn't access, couldn't understand, and certainly couldn't infiltrate. The isolation they created around you wasn't abandonment, it was sacred separation. You were being removed from their frequency so you could tune into something infinitely more powerful. The silence they engineered around you wasn't emptiness, it was pregnant with divine possibility. In that solitude, away from their noise and negativity, you began hearing voices they couldn't drown out, accessing strength they couldn't touch, connecting with purpose they couldn't comprehend. Their rejection became your redirection towards something they never could have offered you anyway. But here's what will astound you about the precision of this divine orchestration. They mistook your silence for weakness when it was actually surgical strategy. Every word you didn't speak was protection. Every response you withheld allowed truth to work behind the scenes without interference. You chose wisdom over emotion, strategy over spectacle, divine timing over human reaction. Only the truly powerful understand when to speak and when to let silence orchestrate its own symphony of vindication. While they were making noise, you were making moves in dimensions they couldn't perceive. While they were performing for an audience, you were being coached by invisible forces they couldn't detect. Their obsession with you revealed something they didn't want to admit. They spent years focused on your destruction because they recognized something divine working through you before you fully recognized it yourself. Your presence exposed everything fake they had built their identities around. Instead of being inspired to elevate themselves, they chose the path of attempted annihilation. The level of their fixation was extraordinary. They were thinking about you more than you were thinking about yourself. They analyzed your social media posts like sacred texts. They dissected your decisions like forensic investigators. They twisted every truth until it fit the narrative they desperately needed to believe. Half of them weren't even mad at you. They were mad at what you represented: freedom, authenticity, unshakable peace. What started as individual resentment evolved into collective obsession, then transformed into something resembling religious fervor. They gathered like congregants, repeating the same stories with conviction, clapping for each other's contributions like it was gospel. The hate became holy to them. Every lie was an offering, every insult was an act of worship at the altar of their own insecurity. But the congregation of your destruction had a fatal flaw. They confused their passion for righteousness. They believed their intensity validated their cause, that the depth of their emotion proved the truth of their accusations. The more they fed each other's fury, the more convinced they became of their own narrative. They weren't just spreading lies, they were creating a mythology, a shared delusion so elaborate that questioning it would require them to question their entire sense of reality. The meetings weren't just gossip sessions, they were revival services for their resentment. Each gathering reinforced their collective delusion. Each shared story added another verse to their gospel of your guilt. They developed rituals around your destruction, the screenshot sessions, the group analysis of your every word, the ceremonial dissection of your character. Your downfall became their drug, and they were addicts feeding each other's addiction. What they didn't realize was that their obsession had transformed them into something monstrous. They had become a living testimony to the destructive power of collective hatred, a walking advertisement for everything they claimed to stand against. In trying to expose your darkness, they had become darkness itself. But chosen ones don't collapse under pressure, they crystallize into something unbreakable. The coordinated assault they launched became the catalyst for your transformation from someone with potential into someone with unshakable spiritual authority. Every attack they launched became another layer of protective armor. Every lie they spread became another degree of your spiritual education. Every door they closed became another pathway to your destiny, opening wider than they ever could have imagined. Now the cosmic reversal begins to unfold with devastating precision. The same community that had united to destroy you was about to become the unwilling audience to your vindication. Truth doesn't just surface, it erupts with volcanic force, reshaping entire landscapes of deception in its wake. Their carefully constructed narrative started contradicting each other in public forums where everyone could witness the collapse. Former conspirators began distancing themselves from the sinking ship of their own creation. People who had confidently spoken lies suddenly couldn't remember their own stories when confronted with inconsistencies. The group chats that had buzzed with excitement about your perceived failures fell silent as participants realized they had been manipulated, not by you, but by their own demons. What they intended as your public execution became their public humiliation, but this reversal was so complete, so undeniable, so perfectly timed that it could only have been authored by divine intelligence. The lies they had meticulously crafted were exposed not by your defense. You hadn't needed to defend yourself, but by their own inability to maintain consistency across their web of deception. The masks didn't fall gradually, they were ripped away with supernatural force that left everyone watching stunned. Alliances that seemed unbreakable crumbled overnight. The unity they had built on shared hatred dissolved into mutual suspicion and finger-pointing. Each former ally suddenly became a potential threat to the other's carefully constructed public images. But here's what makes this divine justice so complete. Their failure wasn't just thorough, it was educational for everyone watching. Every person who witnessed this coordinated attack and its spectacular collapse learned something profound about the nature of authentic power, divine protection, and spiritual warfare. Your story became their awakening to realities they had never understood before. The community that once made your name synonymous with everything they found threatening now found themselves unable to speak that name without revealing their own shame. Your presence, which had triggered their insecurities, now triggered their guilt. Your continued success served as constant evidence of their failure to stop what heaven had ordained. The strength you now carry isn't just personal resilience, it's spiritual authority earned through fire, divine credibility established through persecution, uncompromising confidence forged in the furnace of their opposition. Most people couldn't survive a fraction of what you endured, yet you didn't just survive, you alchemized it all into fuel for your ascension. Hold that thought for a moment. I need your attention for something very important. We're revealing everything we know about personal power, healing yourself, and healing others through weekly Zoom call. No filters, no holding back. We have been quietly adding all the occult secrets we've collected over literal years of spiritual practice. The techniques and wisdom that transformed us from controlled pawns into conscious creators are now available to those ready to walk the same path. This is your invitation to join Obsidian Inner Order and support our platform so we can continue growing our megaphone to reach other chosen ones waiting for activation. By joining the Obsidian Inner Order, you're not just gaining access to forbidden knowledge, you're becoming part of a movement that's rewriting reality itself. It's a 360 win for all of us. Link is in the description. Here's what makes your survival so miraculous. What you walked through would have destroyed the average person completely. The constant attacks, the relentless gaslighting, the systematic isolation. This was psychological warfare designed to make you question your own reality. They weren't just trying to hurt you, they were trying to drive you to complete breakdown, hoping you would self-destruct so they wouldn't have to take responsibility for your destruction. Most people would have cracked under the sustained pressure of being doubted, misunderstood, and sabotaged by everyone they trusted. The average person would have either lashed out in desperate defense or retreated into bitter isolation. Some would have needed professional intervention. Others wouldn't have made it through at all. The level of coordinated cruelty aimed at you was designed to break the human spirit entirely, but you possessed something they never accounted for, a spiritual core that couldn't be touched by human hatred. You may have cried tears they never saw. You may have questioned everything in moments of overwhelming darkness. You may have sat alone wondering if you were losing your mind, but you never gave up. You never stopped believing in something greater than their coordinated assault. That endurance broke something in the spiritual realm they never expected. When a chosen one survives what was designed to destroy them, they don't just recover, they transform into something far more dangerous to the forces of darkness. They become living proof that human hatred has limits, but divine love is limitless. But here's what brings everything together. You were never just their target, you were their test. While they thought they were evaluating your character, heaven was actually evaluating theirs. Your presence became the divine instrument that exposed hearts, revealed true loyalties, and separated authentic relationships from opportunistic alliances. The coordinated campaign against you was actually a massive sorting process. Everyone who participated revealed exactly who they were when faced with someone carrying genuine spiritual authority. Those who chose attack over alignment, destruction over development, hatred over healing, they all identified themselves through their own choices. Look, you already know the game is rigged, and if you're paying attention, you know the walls are closing in. So let's talk about what we're doing about it. When you live by the day at the market's command, where profit and property rule the land, to be heard, to be held, to be dealt a fair hand, these are the things that a people demand, and we hear you. The Obsidian Inner Order has paywalls. Yes, those who stand with us, who fuel this mission, they give us ammunition to fight the Archons, to push back against the machine, to go deeper, to uncover more. And as our thank you, paid members get access to a 1-hour live, personalized weekly group tarot reading guidance, insight and clarity for the road ahead. But kicking a man for being down on the floor, that's something we cannot ignore. That's why starting today you can steal the Astral Atom exclusive daily newsletter for free. No paywall, no catch. Just join the Patreon free tier, link in the description. This is the start of our conversation with you, and it's bi-directional. You can reply to any email we send you. We'll read it, we'll hear you, and we'll do our best to get an answer to you from the universe itself. If you can support, we need you. If you can't, take what's free. The Obsidian Inner Order is open. Now, let's get back to work. What they didn't understand was that your very existence had become a spiritual litmus test, revealing the true pH of every heart in your vicinity. Your authenticity exposed their pretense, your peace highlighted their chaos, your boundaries revealed their manipulation tactics, your growth triggered their stagnation. You weren't doing anything to them, you were simply being yourself, and that authentic presence was like acid on their false personas. The divine sorting wasn't just about removing toxic people from your life, it was about preparing you for a level of influence that requires absolute discernment. You needed to learn how to identify wolves in sheep's clothing, how to spot manipulation disguised as concern, how to recognize spiritual poverty dressed up as wisdom. Their coordinated attack became your graduate-level education in human nature. Every person who turned against you was actually disqualifying themselves from access to your next season. They were voluntarily removing themselves from the blessing they could have shared, the elevation they could have witnessed, the testimony they could have been part of. In trying to stop your rise, they eliminated themselves from participating in it. The beautiful precision of this divine filtering system is that it required no effort from you. You didn't have to investigate anyone's motives or test anyone's loyalty. Their true character emerged automatically when confronted with authentic spiritual authority. Like metal detectors at an airport, your presence separated the genuine from the counterfeit without you having to lift a finger. Every chosen one must walk through betrayal, isolation, and coordinated opposition before the truth of who they are becomes undeniable. This wasn't just spiritual warfare, it was spiritual initiation. The very attacks meant to destroy you were actually the labor pains of your rebirth into unshakable authority. Their failure wasn't just inevitable, it was prophesied from the moment they decided to coordinate against you. What they were fighting wasn't just flesh and blood, it was divine purpose working through human form, something that had survived storms they couldn't imagine and been tempered by fires they had never faced. Their defeat was locked into the spiritual realm before their first conspiratorial conversation ever began. But here's what makes their failure so complete and educational. The divine orchestrated every detail of their downfall to ensure maximum visibility. This wasn't going to be a quiet correction or a private vindication. Since their attack had been public, coordinated, and shameless, their exposure would be equally public, equally coordinated, and equally undeniable. The divine strategy was masterful. Let them exhaust themselves completely. Let them reveal every weapon in their arsenal. Let them show the full extent of their malice, and then dismantle their entire operation in front of everyone who had witnessed their assault. This way there would be no room for doubt, no possibility of claiming they hadn't really meant it, no opportunity to rewrite history. The divine cleared the stage of everyone who might have complicated your glory. Every fair-weather friend who abandoned you, every mentor who withdrew support, every family member who chose sides against you, their absence wasn't abandonment, it was divine insulation. Heaven was removing everyone who would have tried to take partial credit for your survival, everyone who would have claimed they helped you through it. The isolation they created was actually the divine's way of ensuring that when your breakthrough came, there would be no confusion about the source of your strength. No friend could claim they carried you. No advisor could say they guided you. No supporter could take credit for your resilience. You walked through that fire with nothing but faith, and when you emerged transformed, the glory could only go to one place. This is why your vindication carries such devastating power. It's undeniably supernatural. Everyone saw what you went through. The betrayal was witnessed. The attacks were documented, the isolation was complete, and now that you're rising stronger than ever, thriving without their approval, glowing without their validation, the source of your strength is obvious to everyone watching. The irony is so perfect it reads like cosmic comedy. They isolated you to make you weak, and instead made you self-sufficient. They attacked your reputation to destroy your influence, and instead gave you a testimony that no manufactured story could rival. They tried to break your spirit to stop your purpose, and instead refined your spirit to fulfill that purpose more powerfully than would have been possible without their opposition. What they meant for destruction became the raw material for your destiny. Every betrayal taught you discernment that money can't buy. Every attack developed endurance that training can't provide. Every lie strengthened your commitment to truth beyond any oath. Every moment of isolation deepened your connection to divine purpose more than any community could. Now when your name comes up in those same rooms where it was once dragged through the mud, the entire atmosphere shifts. People who once spoke confidently about your flaws now change the subject, suddenly remember somewhere else they need to be, or sit in uncomfortable silence. Your name has become their conviction, a living reminder of their participation in a campaign that backfired so spectacularly it exposed their character more than it ever touched yours. The transformation is remarkable to witness. These same individuals who once threw your name around like a weapon now handle it like radioactive material. They understand instinctively that speaking against you now would only remind everyone of how wrong they were before. Your name carries a weight they can't explain, an authority they never anticipated, a spiritual gravity that bends conversations in your favor, even when you're not present. The people who once made careers out of criticizing you now find themselves professionally embarrassed by their association with the failed campaign. Their credibility took a hit when your vindication became undeniable. Associates began questioning their judgment. Friends started wondering what else they might have been wrong about. Their reputation for discernment was permanently damaged by their participation in character assassination that collapsed so publicly. But the spiritual shift goes deeper than social embarrassment. Your name has become a trigger for their conscience, an instant reminder of their participation in coordinated evil. Every time they hear it, they're confronted with the memory of who they became during those dark seasons, the lies they told, the cruelty they enabled, the hatred they carried, the pleasure they took in another person's pain. Some of them avoid places where your name might come up. Others change the subject immediately when someone mentions you. A few have developed an almost superstitious fear of speaking against you, having witnessed firsthand how their previous attacks backfired. They've learned through bitter experience that your name carries protective power they don't understand and can't combat. The community that tried to write you out of the story became supporting characters in the greatest comeback narrative they never wanted to witness. They have front-row seats to divine vindication, unwilling participants in a testimony that will outlive their opposition and outshine their efforts to diminish your light. Your existence has become their ongoing defeat. Not because you sought revenge, but because you chose resilience over retaliation. Not because you fought back, but because you fought through. Not because you exposed their lies, but because you lived your truth so consistently that their lies exposed themselves. Your life became a walking contradiction to every negative thing they said about you. The weapons they forged against you became the tools heaven used to refine you into something unbreakable. Their coordination against you became divine coordination for you. Their unity in hatred became the catalyst for your unity with purpose. Their commitment to your destruction became the foundation for your construction into someone they could never touch again. The fire they lit to consume you became the light that now guides others through similar darkness. Your name, which they tried to turn into a cautionary tale, has become a blessing that speaks hope to every other chosen one facing coordinated opposition. The community that gathered to witness your downfall instead became the first congregation to witness miraculous vindication. But here's the ultimate transformation that completes this divine masterpiece. You didn't become bitter. The grace that sustained you through their coordinated assault now transforms their defeat into your victory celebration. You don't need revenge because divine justice has already been served with surgical precision. You don't need to expose them because their own actions accomplished that task more thoroughly than any defense you could have mounted. You don't need to defend your character because your character defended itself through the very trials they orchestrated. The purity of your response, choosing elevation over retaliation, wisdom over warfare, grace over grudges, this became the final evidence that everything they said about you was projection of their own spiritual poverty onto your authentic light. Your refusal to descend to their level while ascending to yours became the most powerful testimony of all. It proved that true strength doesn't need to destroy its enemies. It simply outlasts them, outgrows them, and ultimately transforms them into footnotes in a much grander story. This is your vindication, chosen one. Not just survival, but transformation. Not just endurance, but transcendence. Not just protection, but elevation. The community that teamed up to destroy you didn't just fail, they participated in the very plan they thought they were opposing. In trying to dim your light, they became the darkness that made your brilliance impossible to ignore. Your story isn't over, it's finally being told in its divine completeness. And the truth that emerges from this entire orchestrated ordeal is magnificently simple. They never had the power to destroy what heaven ordained to rise. Welcome to the other side of your persecution, where every attack has become armor, every lie has become testimony, and every enemy has become evidence of just how divinely protected and powerfully destined you really are.